Okay, and it looks like we are at 1 o'clock, so I am going to get started. I'm going to introduce myself again. I am Amanda Mallon. I am an Assistant Director of Career and Professional Development with Penn State Abington's Center for Career and Professional Development. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to strongly encourage you to participate throughout this program. Please feel free to enter any of your questions in the chat box. We also have a Q&A, so if you have questions, you can use that platform. And I'm going to try to, ask you to participate through polls as well as the chat box. Okay. So if we get started, I'm just going to start with a poll. And I want to get a sense of who is participating today. So if you can just take a minute and respond to this poll and let me know which group you fall in. This webinar is going to be recorded, and all of these webinars will be posted on our website for people to view afterwards. If you are watching the webinar through the website, please note that you will not be able to see the polls or the chat box. Okay, while you are voting, I'm just going to give a quick overview of our agenda today. So we are going to start by talking about what employers want, the key skills that they are looking for when reviewing job applicants' materials. We're going to talk about what you want, so how you want to be portrayed by employers, how you want them to see them when they are reviewing your resume and your cover letter. We are going to talk about resumes and cover letters in detail, so formatting, what you should include, what you don't need to include. We're going to briefly cover social media and talk about how you can use that to help benefit your career. And then I'm going to show you some additional resources that our office can offer you. Okay, so let's take a look at these poll results. Looks like we have mostly recent graduates and alumni joining us. So wonderful. We do also have, looks like someone that's brand new to Penn State and a couple of second and third year students. So welcome to everyone. This is going to be applicable no matter what stage of your career you are in. Okay. All right. So as we move on, let's take a look here. I want to start by asking you what you think are some of the key skills that employers are looking for on resumes. So use your chat box and type in what you think some of the skill sets are that they might be looking for. When they're reviewing resumes from their job applicants, what are some of those key words, key skills that these employers are specifically looking for? Go ahead and type them in the chat box. Okay, leadership skills, absolutely. What else? Communication skills, excellent. Critical thinking, specific techniques for certain fields, absolutely. Excellent. Teamwork, organizational skills, great. Okay, so I'm going to share this image, and these are the top 10 skills that employers are looking for on your resume. And these are from the results of NACE, which is the National Association for Colleges and Employers. This is the results of their most recent Job Outlook survey, where they are actually asking employers, what are the skills that they are looking for from our students and alumni? So when you are looking at these top 10 skills, I want you to keep these in the back of your mind throughout this presentation. And I want you to be thinking, of these 10 skills, what do you know are some of your key strengths, and how are you making sure that they are coming through across your resume? So if someone is reading your resume, how are you making sure that you are showing them that you have these skills and these experiences that these employers are looking for? And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can be doing that. Okay, so then how do you want employers to remember you? I want you to take a minute and I want you to think of a brand or a company or a product that you really like. What's one of your favorite brands or products? And I want you to then think about what words come to mind when you think about that brand or that product or that company. And now I want you to put yourself in those shoes. And I want you to think of how would you want others to describe you, right? So if someone is thinking of you as a brand or as a company, how do you want them to be describing you and remembering you? And how can you be sending that message through your application materials? Someone shared that innovation, excellent. What else? Feel free to share in the chat what you're thinking about. Great. Efficient, okay, excellent. Maybe reliable, good communicator, someone who has strong technical abilities, creativity. Think about that. What do you want your materials to say about you? Okay. All right. We're going to go into another poll. And I'm going to ask, one second. What do you think is the average time that an employer spends reading a resume? So the options are 6 seconds, 36 seconds, or 1 minute and 6 seconds. What do you think? Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And let's take a look at the results. It looks like more people are thinking 36 seconds. No one voted for 1 minute and 6 seconds. And a few people selected 6 seconds. And believe it or not, 6 seconds is the correct answer. So it's important to remember, because when employers are reviewing your resume, they are doing a very quick scan of your resume. They are not spending a significant amount of time reading it. So it is extra important that you are making sure that you are getting your message across in a very concise and efficient manner. Okay, so when thinking about your resume, you want to make sure that you are following the standard resume format. So you want to be using a standard font, something that is very easy to read. Normally about 12 is a good size font. You don't want to go too small, because some people will have a difficult time reading it. Okay. You also do not typically want to use color throughout your resume. Employers say that color can actually be distracting. So most of the time you will just use black font throughout the resume. And for most students and recent graduates, your resume should be 1 page, 1 side only. You want to be concise and show these employers what you have done and what skills you have to offer them. For alumni, once you start to get a few years of professional experience, then it's okay to go to a page and a half, 2 pages. But for the majority of students and recent graduates, your resume will be 1 page, 1 side only. And it is extremely important that you are taking your time to tailor your resume to every position that you are applying to. So yes, you will have a general resume where you are, given your standard format, you have all of your experiences, but then what you want to do is take that general resume, and as you are applying to each position, you want to be going through the job descriptions or internship descriptions, pulling out keywords and key phrases that those employers are looking for, and matching and aligning your skills and experiences with those positions so that the employers can see that you have the skills that they are looking for. Okay, very important that you are tailoring your resume to every position. So this may be a little blurry, but I wanted to just give us an example to play around with, okay? So this is an actual position that we had posted in our Nittany Lion Careers career management system in the spring. This is with the company Vanguard, and this was for a client relationship associate position. This is only part of the job description. I wanted to try to make it as large as possible so we could just look at part of it. Look at this description though. What are some of those keywords or key phrases that you may want to pull out of this job description and try to show and highlight throughout your resume if you feel you have those experiences that align with this opportunity? What do you think? What are some keywords and phrases that stand out in this position? World-class, communication skills, customer service. Great. Leading with empathy, solution-oriented, support, Absolutely. So that's what you want to be doing. And this is just a very small example, but you want to be really going through the internship and job descriptions and pulling out those phrases. So have a highlighter, go through them, underline them, use your computer to pull out those keywords and make sure that you're aligning your documents with the employer's descriptions. This is a photo of our career guide. When we are on campus, we do have hard copies of this career guide that we can give to students. Right now, everything is virtual, and we do also have a PDF version of this on our website. And I would strongly encourage you after today to go on our website, and if you have not already looked at this career guide, go through it. It has a ton of very useful information that is going to take you throughout the entire career development process. And while we're talking about resumes and cover letters today, there are a lot of sample resumes and cover letters in the career guide, and there is a nice list of action verbs, which I'm going to talk about again in a little bit, that I will encourage you to go back and look at as well. And the career guide is listed on our website under our 24/7 career tools. So definitely take a look at that. Okay, and now we're going to get into the sections of the resume. So at the top of your resume is going to be your name and contact information. You normally want your name to be a little bit larger, maybe bold it, make it stand out somehow. You want to include the best address for you, as well as the best phone number and email address for an employer to get in touch with you. With your phone number and your email address, it is very important that you are making sure that you are sending a professional message. And what I mean by that is with your email address, you can use your Penn State email address if you're a current student. You may want to use more of a personal email address though, and that is fine, but you want to make sure that your personal email address looks professional. So if you have a fun email that you used back in middle school or high school, maybe create a new email that aligns more with your name that you can start using for your internship and job applications. So in this example, we did riley.resume@gmail.com. And with your phone number, same thing. You want to be thinking about what is your voicemail message, right? So if an employer calls you and you miss that call, what impression are they going to get of you from your voicemail message? You want to make sure that you have a professional greeting. The LinkedIn profile link is optional. If you are someone who is active on LinkedIn and has a detailed profile, you can certainly include that at the top of your resume. If you feel like you don't have enough information on your LinkedIn, or for whatever reason do not want to include that on your resume, it is optional and you do not need to include it on the resume. Absolutely fine. Okay, now for most current students and recent graduates, the first section on your resume is going to be the education section. You want to show employers what you are studying, either when you anticipate to graduate or that you just recently graduated, and you want to show them what skills that you learned throughout your coursework, right? If you are someone who is an alum and you have a few years of experience, your education might come after your professional experience. When writing our resumes, we always want to think what is most relevant for the employer, and that's what should be at the top of the page. We want them to read the most relevant experiences right at the top because we want to immediately grab their attention. So the education section should include similar information to this. You want to write out the Pennsylvania State University. We do not recommend using just Penn State University. You want to be more formal with your resume. So the Pennsylvania State University, and then the location. So if you are graduating from Abington, Abington, PA. If you went to University Park or another campus, you could write University Park, PA, or the campus that you were at. You want to write out the full degree that you either received or will be receiving, as well as your major. If you have concurrent majors, you would include both of them. If you have minors, certificates, that should all go on here as well. So in this example, we are using the Bachelor of Arts in Corporate Communications, and this person also has a minor in psychology. You also want to write your expected graduation date, month and year, or the month and year that you've already graduated. Give an employer an idea of where you are in your education. You can then include your GPA, Dean's List, any types of honors, awards, scholarships, that can all go in the education section if you feel that it is applicable. So normally if your GPA is 3.0 or higher, it's something that you can certainly include on the resume. From here, you have a few different options, especially for current students and recent graduates who might not have a lot of professional experience yet. You do have the option of creating a relevant coursework section and or a relevant project section. So this is where you can go into more detail and show some of the related classes that you've completed, or even go into more detail and describe some of the projects that you've completed. So if you created an entire advertising campaign in one of your classes, you can actually break that down and talk about that on your resume to show employers that you have some of those related skill sets. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the experience section. So we have our contact information, we have our education information. What do you think you can include in the experience section? What are some of the different types of activities or experiences that you think could go here? Type them in the chat box. Clubs and leadership experiences, absolutely. Jobs, volunteer work, internships, independent research. Great. Excellent. You guys hit on pretty much everything. What you want to be thinking about is anything and everything that you have done that has helped you develop those key skills that we talked about earlier. And a lot of times when I'm meeting with students, they'll come to me and say, I don't really have a lot of experience. I only have one part-time job. I don't know what I can include on here. And you all are correct in that your experiences do not have to be paid positions. They don't need to be full-time positions. You just want to be thinking about what types of activities have you been involved with where you have been developing some of those key skill sets that we want you to be highlighting throughout your resume to employers. So anything, research, publications, presentations, internships, part-time jobs, summer jobs, the student clubs and activities, leadership and volunteer experience, study abroad, global experiences, you name it, it can go on your resume, absolutely. Okay. And then we're going to talk about how do you highlight it on your resume. So what do you think? Looking at these two examples, these are the same exact position. The descriptions look slightly different. Which one do you think is the preferred method by employers? And why do they prefer that message? What do you notice as some of the differences? Okay, someone's saying option 2. What about option 2? Bullet points, okay. It's much more specific and detailed with the bullet points, definitely more detailed. Absolutely. Option 1 is very, very broad, right? They are not going into more detail about what they actually accomplished throughout their experience. Option 1 is harder to read because it is the paragraph format versus the bullet point format. So someone said it's easier to read and see their skills in option 2. That is what employers share with us when they're talking about those bullet points. When you are describing your experiences, you want to use the bullet points and start each point with a strong action verb. And those action verbs are where you are going to highlight some of those key skills that I keep referencing. So really be thinking about what have you accomplished and how can you be detailed and more specific in your descriptions throughout your resume. A couple other things that you'll note. In the first one, it has the YMCA in Philadelphia, PA. The second one is a little bit more specific. It talks about the specific YMCA. For each of your positions, you want to include the name of the organization, the location, typically city and state, your role with the organization. And you'll notice here in the first example, it has PC. Would anyone have any idea what a PC is if they did not know this individual or does not have an affiliation with the YMCA? Probably not. So you want to try to avoid using any type of abbreviations throughout your resume because what seems obvious to you may not be as obvious to an employer. So you want to spell words out, right? So program coordinator as opposed to PC. You also want to be more specific with your dates. So the first one is just showing 2019. The second one is showing month year to month year, and that's giving us a more specific time frame, because if you just write 2019, you could have been at that job from January 2019 to December 2019, which is almost an entire year, or you could have been at that job from January to February, maybe just a month or two. Those are two very different experiences. So you want to be very specific with your dates. If it is something that you are still involved with, you could put month year to present and show that you are currently doing that. And for our sections of our resume, you want to list your experiences most recent to oldest. So you start with your more recent experiences, and then you will work backwards. Okay, so someone said, if the position was part-time, where would you indicate that on the resume? You actually don't have to. That is a great question. You do not have to indicate how many hours you are working at the job. You don't have to indicate if it was paid or unpaid, part-time or full-time. Doesn't really matter to the employer. They just want to see what the positions were that you were involved with and what those skills and accomplishments were that came out of that. Great question. Okay. And with your experience section, it's going to look different for everyone. So some people might just have one experience section. Some people might have multiple. Someone who's really involved on campus may have a whole section dedicated to their leadership and involvement. Someone who has a lot of intern experiences may have those experiences throughout their resume and a separate section for that versus some of those part-time and summer jobs. It's just going to look different for every individual depending on what you can offer those employers. Okay, so someone else asked, what experiences should you place first? Great question. So there's two different ways you want to think about this. So the first thing you want to think about is what is most relevant that you have done. What are the most relevant experiences that you have in relation to the position you're applying for, right? So this again is where you may be changing your resume a little bit depending on the types of opportunities you're applying to. So you want to think, what are your most relevant experiences? And then looking at the most relevant experiences, you want to go your most recent to oldest from those experiences. I hope that clarifies. And someone said, what if the related experience is not related to the position that we are applying to, as if it were in a different industry? Should you still list it on your resume? You absolutely could. So I think that could then depend on how much do you already have on your resume. If you feel like your resume is too long, you do have the option possibly to omit some of those less relevant experiences. But if you're a student and you want to include a waitressing position or something that you might not see as directly related, you should still include them, because a lot of times what you're developing in those experiences will be directly related to the position. So as an example, when students are working as waiters and waitresses, they are developing a lot of customer service skills, a lot of communication skills, right? You're able usually to do a lot of time management. You're dealing in a high pressure environment. So those are all very applicable skills, no matter what type of industry you are applying to. So sometimes it's not necessarily about the specific industry, it's more about what are the skills that you've developed and how do they relate to the different types of opportunities. Okay, great questions, everyone. Please keep asking. Excellent. Okay, and then after the experience section, you also have the option to do a skills section. If you add the skills section, this is typically for specific technical skills. So if you are someone who has certain knowledge of specific computer programs related to your major or career path, if you are someone who maybe social media is going to be relevant for the types of jobs you're applying for, those can all be included on the resume. And if you are someone who is proficient in another language, you can include that on the resume. And you want to include your level of proficiency. What you typically will not include in the skills section are things like organization skills, time management skills, communication skills. And the reason you don't want to include those phrases in the skills section is because we want to see those throughout the experience section in those descriptions that we just talked about. Okay. And that's it for resumes. So now we are going to go into cover letters. And with the cover letter, whether or not the employer asks for it, we will encourage you to submit a cover letter with every resume you apply for with every position, internship and job opportunities. The cover letter is just an extra opportunity for you to help make yourself stand out. It's showing that you spent the time to tailor it to that specific employer. It's showing that you are a strong communicator, that you can write well, and that you care enough to take the time to really write that valuable letter, okay? So we definitely recommend that you include a cover letter with every application. And similar to the resume, yes, you can have sort of a standard general cover letter that you work off of, but still it is extremely important that you are tailoring your cover letter to every position you apply to. We hear countless stories from employers where they received cover letters that were addressed to different organizations, that the positions referenced in the cover letter were not at their company, and employers notice those details. Those little details can make a very big difference. So you want to make sure that you're taking the time to be thorough with both your resume and your cover letter. I will go through the format of the cover letter in a minute, but I wanted to start with the content. So cover letters are typically going to be 3 to 4 paragraphs. Your first paragraph is where you're going to introduce yourself. You are going to state how you identified the position. So did you find it on Nittany Lion Careers? Did you find it on the company website? Did someone refer you? Did you talk to someone at the Career Expo about it? You would include that, and you want to make sure to state the specific position and organization that you're applying to. Then you can have 1 or 2 middle paragraphs. And this is where you do not just want to restate what is already on your resume, but you want to go into a little bit more detail about 1 or 2 specific experiences or projects that you've completed that you think directly relate to that position. And this is also where you can go into more detail about why that organization. What is it about that company? What is it about their brand, their products, that specific internship or job that really speaks to you? Why do you want to work for them? And that can make all the difference to help you really stand out from other applicants. Then your final paragraph is your closing. So you want to thank them for taking the time to review your materials. You want to explain how you will follow up if you plan to follow up with them, or you want to give them your information to make sure that they can reach out to you. You do not want to put in that last paragraph, please see my resume for my phone number and email. No, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to contact you. So put that in that last paragraph. Please feel free to contact me at phone number or email. Thank you again. Okay, very formal. And cover letters are written in business professional format. So it's going to be outlined similar to this. At the top of the page will be your address. Instead of your address, you do also have the option of using the same heading that is on your resume. If you want that consistent heading, that is also appropriate. You will include the date that you are applying for the position. You will include all of the employer's information. For cover letters, you always want to try to address them to a specific individual. So if there is a name listed in that job or internship description, you would include that. Sometimes you can do a little bit of research and find out who the hiring manager is or who you would be reporting to. You could put their name there. If you cannot find a name, and sometimes it just really is difficult, then you do not have to include a name. It's okay to leave it off, but at least try to identify someone. So you'll put the name if you have it. You would put the name of the company as well as their address. And then you are going to address it to either dear Mr., Ms., or Dr., their last name, if you know of a person, or you will put dear hiring manager if you don't have a specific name. Then you will put your paragraphs. For your paragraphs, you will not indent them, and each paragraph will be single-spaced with a double space separating each section. This is a business professional format, so it's a little bit different from what you might normally be used to. And then at the bottom, you would put your closure, so you could put sincerely, and then your name. When sending electronic cover letters, you do not need to sign your name. If you want to scan it in somehow, you certainly can, but it is not necessary. Okay, and then a couple other things that you might want to be prepared for. Depending on the types of opportunities you're applying to, there may be additional application materials. So you may have to answer some questions related to the position of the organization. Some companies may want to see your transcripts. They may want to see that you actually have completed the coursework that you're saying you have. They may want to confirm your GPA. Some employers may request references with your job application. If you need to submit references in advance, they should be professional references. So they should not be family or friends. They should ideally be people who have worked with you in more of a professional environment. So if you have had an internship supervisor or a part-time summer job supervisor, they would be great people to speak about your work ethic and your work abilities. If you are part of a student organization, the coordinator of the student organization, the staff or faculty coordinator, I should say, could be someone who could also be a reference for you. And then depending on the types of opportunities, you may also need to submit a portfolio and some samples. So if you are someone who is applying for more of a creative position, they might want to see that you have some sample advertising campaigns or that you've used social media as a marketing platform in the past. So think about that. Do you have your portfolio prepared? And then it's extra important to think about that, yes, applications can be time consuming, but they are so worth it. When you are thinking about your job applications, resumes, cover letters, I always encourage people to think quality over quantity. It is better for you to take your time, tailor each application for each position, and submit fewer documents, so fewer applications, than to just submit the same resume, same cover letter for tons and tons of positions. Typically, the person who is taking their time and submitting few applications, but being more thorough with those applications is more likely to get an interview than someone who's just applying to anything and everything they can find. And editing. So, so, so important. I cannot emphasize this enough. Again, we hear stories from employers all the time, and we see this a lot in the Center for Career and Professional Development when we are reviewing documents. You want to make sure that you are reviewing your resume and cover letter before submitting them, and ideally have a fresh set of eyes take a look at them for you as well. So you can always have one of our staff review your documents for you. If it's not someone from our office, just make sure you have, a family member, a friend, just someone look at it and make sure that there's not anything glaring, spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, nothing that you missed, because it's easy for us to miss things in the documents that we're working on when we're looking at them for so long. And then a fresh set of eyes comes in and can almost immediately pick out those errors. Errors on your resume and cover letter are almost going to immediately put you in the no pile for those employers, right? They're going to look at that and think this person's not very detail oriented. They didn't even take the time to review their documents. So you want to make sure that you're editing. So, so, so important. Okay, before we move on to social media, I just want to see if there are any other questions pertaining to resumes or cover letters. So I'm going to actually go back for a minute. How about you raise your hand if you are good to go, good to move on? Okay. All right, great, lots of hands raised. Oh, someone asked, okay, for your resume, do you place the college that you are currently in? Yes. So under that education section, that is where you would list the college that you are currently a student at. If you are someone who transferred, it is optional to include your transfer institution. So if you did not get a degree from that other school, so if you did not get an associate's degree, if you just did maybe a semester or a few semesters at the other school, you can include it if you want to, but you don't have to. The education section is really more to show where you are graduating from and what degrees you'll be receiving. If you are someone who went to a community college or another school and got an associate's degree, then I would encourage you to keep that on the resume. Okay. All right, we'll move on to social media, but if you do think of more questions related to resumes or cover letters, feel free to add them. We're going to do one more poll here. I want to see how you feel about your social media accounts. So would you feel comfortable with an employer viewing your current social media accounts? Okay, lots of yeses coming in, great. Okay. Okay, we have a no. That's okay. That's what we're here for. Okay. So let's take a look at the results. Okay, so most of you said yes, and then we do have a couple people that said no. So what I want you to be thinking about, especially if you are someone who said no, you really want to be thinking about what are you not comfortable with them seeing and clean it up. Right? So important that you clean up your social media accounts because employers are viewing your social media accounts. They are looking at you not only on LinkedIn, but on some of your other social media accounts. And social media can be a great way for you to continue to build that professional brand that we're talking about. It is another way for you to promote your experiences, for you to promote those skills that you want to come across. And thinking about how do you want to be remembered, you can send those same messages through social media. So someone said, what would employers be looking for on social media accounts? They may be looking to see how are you communicating, right? So if you are thinking about LinkedIn as an example, are you sharing different opportunities, right? So with like a LinkedIn, with even maybe an Instagram or Twitter, what types of things are you sharing? Are you sharing things that are inspirational? Are you someone who maybe is someone who's more on the creative side and is, helping promote a certain type of organization or product? They might be looking at that. For LinkedIn, they may be looking at how are you interacting with different types of companies? Are you following organizations? Are you following their company? Right? That can be a great way for you to get more information about not only the organizations, but also opportunities. So there's a lot of ways that you can really be using social media for your benefit with your career development. And we will have a whole nother webinar all about LinkedIn. So if you are someone who is not on LinkedIn, if you're not actively using it, then I would recommend that you participate in that webinar as well, because LinkedIn and other social media platforms can really just be another way for you to build the professional brand and get your name out there. Okay. And then another way that social media can help your career, following us. So our office has so many different platforms, and we are constantly sharing different events, different career opportunities, both internships and jobs. We highlight employers and organizations. We highlight different resources that are available to our students and alumni. So we are always sharing so much information with you that if you are not already following us, if you don't already like us online, definitely join some of our groups because it's just a great way for you to continue to get helpful and useful information. And then finally, stay connected with our office. So I want to thank you all again for participating in the webinar today. I want to thank you for actively participating. You had great questions. You shared your answers in the chat box. I really appreciate that. But please stay in touch with our office. We are doing virtual appointments. So if you have any other topics that you want to talk about, you can schedule a virtual appointment. You can also, come to us and we can review your resume and cover letter and talk about ways that you can make them stronger if you're not feeling super confident with them. We can do mock interviews, tons and tons of ways that we can help you. And we are here, we are open, and we want to support you throughout your process. So please, reach out, let us know how we can help. Visit our 24/7 career tools if you have not already. Lots of great resources on our website. And then we are also having a lot of events and workshops listed on our website, constantly updating that as we are hearing about different programs. This was just the first installment of our summer job search series webinars. So definitely continue to tune in every Tuesday at 1. The webinars are also being recorded, as I mentioned earlier. So if you can't participate live, you're welcome to access them on our website.